Tata. The Africa we want: unity, consciousness, our culture, our spirituality, our history. One Africa for Africans worldwide. Motherlands calling its diaspora home. Join my voice. Join my team. Join my campaign. Campaign 21 hashtag 1 million subscribers on the Pan African Daily TV YouTube. Be a volunteer. Apply now. Be the new Africa.
So, good evening, wherever you're watching from, or good morning or good afternoon. Welcome to this special and exclusive edition with our expert, advocate, ambassador for Eastern Horn of Africa, peace ambassador, and analytic, and also a voice, a powerful voice and critic. Yes. Today we want to talk about the whole situation on the continent and in the diaspora, particularly focusing on the issue of Chad. You know, we just heard about the passing away of His Excellency Idris Debby, and now we also heard about the son who has been who is now the youngest, currently the youngest African leader on the continent in transition to the elections, to who is actually going to be the leader of Chad. Yeah, we also had some controversies and announcements going on this morning that he also was murdered. But I want to confirm this source that is not true. That is fake news. If you ever had received a post saying that, you know, the upcoming or the incoming son of the late Excellency Idris Debby has also died last night, that is fake. That is absolutely not true. He is alive, and he has been seen even in audience today receiving, you know, his ministers of cabinet and already taking functions and assuming functions as well. Yeah. So please be aware of every kind of information that we circulate out there. Make sure you verify these facts before you share it with our audience, particularly something that has to do with life and justice and, you know, information and education could be also good, but also misleading. So I want to welcome you here for this on this topic today, and with our biggest expert that has always been with us here to educate us and to inform us on the United Nations Security Council or on peace issues that are going on the continent. And you know, his focus is actually as a peace ambassador to analyze the situation and come up with solutions that would actually not only inform us, create a sensitivity, create awareness, but also to educate us on how can we achieve peace in this kind of a broken situation that we are in now. So what is he going to be doing with us? Ambassador Tony Jaja is going to be analyzing a video that we put up, the team of the Pan-African Daily TV put up today, and he's going to be analyzing that video, picking out really critical points from it, and then we discuss on it to see what is the way forward, particularly on this topic. Freedom, nothing, full stop, nothing less than that. We just had the verdict of late George Floyd passed on. Now, what is the way forward? Should Africans just be celebrating that justice is served? That is one question. But what kind of justice is served? Does it mean that there's never going to be something like that? We also heard the Prime Minister or the Vice President, I'm sorry, of the United States came out in public with His Excellency Joe Biden, and they actually, you know, proved satisfaction that at least something has taken place for the first time. And we also saw that the legal act of George Floyd, yeah, has been passed on. These are all things that we'll be analyzing this week to find out, or to educate ourselves on the current situation. Be aware of the fact it is not about to spur some kind of emotions, yeah, of I don't know what. We can feel annoyed, but our purpose on the Pan-African Daily TV is to look for solutions that would bring peace and sustainable, lasting solution. But we also know there can be no peace without justice and equality. Yes, that is a fact, and that's why we are engaging in this concept of looking for challenges, but also seeking for solutions to address these challenges, particularly affecting the Africans worldwide, from Africans to Africans. So welcome to this show and to our studio tonight, live from South Sudan or from Sudan or anywhere from the east of Horn that you're watching. Please make sure you like, comment, and share, and subscribe to our studio today, to our YouTube channel today, as we are about to launch our 1 million campaign subscribers. So you can also be a volunteer as we carry on the conversation. Welcome, my ambassador. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Dr. Tata. I'm really doing well. Just thank God for His grace.
Yes. Good. I mean, you've been sharing most of the early pictures that I received last night and today were coming all from you. The first one was about the passing away of Excellency Idris Debby, and also even the coming president. And then not only was I done with that, you kept posting me also the verdict that was posted. Now, in that state of mind, what were you actually thinking about when you were posting that, when you saw all this outcome coming up?
You see, this is was a shocking news to me that I just got it. The breaking news, even some people did not know. That was yesterday in the daylight time that President Idris Debby has passed away, a very severe injury in the front line. The one thing came to my mind: what took the president to go to the front line as the head of the state, somebody who just got his tremendous result of election as in the second term of his period, and even he did not even giving the state speech after winning the election, and then he found himself going to see his troop, those who have been fighting in the northern part of Chad, with a different group of rebels, which they have even called they are the terrorists, who came from the south of Libya, who used to be missionaries on the other side. So the question just came to my mind because last week I was in an event and I was sitting next to the ambassador of Chad to Sudan, and I was giving a congratulation about the election, and I said, but now this election now has brought opposition to rebel, and this is what we have been going through in Africa. When you are in election and these things is not, you are not seeing the good result of that election, and you have a question of that this result was not a perfect one, so you go immediately and then you see what is happening was not a good thing. So this is what came to my mind. Exactly. See. Yeah.
I think so, because it was a shock, and that's the question everyone is asking. What actually took him there? He was just re-elected the day before, and we didn't even hear the speech or anything like that. What actually must have taken him out to the front line? That is still a question that every other person is asking. But of course, the fact is that he's no more, and we wish the people of Chad our condolences out there. I know it must be very difficult, even to just reinstall. Yes, now the sun. I mean, there's some emotions going out there, or what? Or is it just according to their constitution?
Yeah, the constitution said that if something happened to the president, if president is absent, whether he is not able to constitute his duties, the speaker of the parliament should take over. But these things just came enormously when the generals of the army who were fighting the rebels in the northern part of northern west of Chad, and then they declared that this young man Muhammad, which they call it Muhammad, and which is Muhammad Kaka Idris Debby, to take over, because this young man 37 years, or these 37 years It's not just because he was a son of Idris Debby, and then they installed him to be the head of the military council. Because he has been there for the military. He was one of the advisory to the president. He was a head of the presidential guard. He has gone through different training, and he has taken some of the leadership, and he was so known by the people, even by the military personnel. You know, there's some people who are even ahead of him with the experience, with the age and all these things, but they have seen the capability of this young man, that he is capable to lead the transitional council, military council, for this 18 months, so to prepare people for the election.
Okay, that's good. Anyway, today, because our next guest, Al Wahab from Ghana, is really going to be the one to actually talk deeply about the Situation Room chat out there and focus on, you know, all the challenges and whatever the audience or the followers or Africans should know about that situation there, or even the way forward. Today, we want to really talk about the situation of George Floyd. You know, it's really not a coincidence, Ambassador Tony Jaja. You remember the first show when he was murdered? It was you and me on this Pan-African Daily TV when it happened, and you announced it the night before the first videos ever came out. And now exactly the verdict came out. That's why you are here with me to focus on this. Now we've been seeing a lot of speeches, even from the president and his vice president, and also we've seen how the family is actually jubilating, and Africans worldwide are posting a hashtag and all that. Now we want to analyze this concept, and then, you know, get your point of view as an expert. What is it that Africans should expect, and what is it that we should be doing? You know, is it just a verdict that is just passed, or something that we really have to learn from it? So yeah. What coincidence that you're here again on this topic on the day of the verdict? What is that saying to you as a peace ambassador?
That is really the excitement moment when I was seeing those. I've been following the case from day one, and I've been following through G.C. Jackson and Reverend G.C. Jackson, and I've been following through Reverend Archab and the attorney Benjamin, because they were the one championing these things. They were the one, even the daughter of Martin Luther King Jr. I've been following with them and their speeches, and then and that is the really giving me that there is something going to happen, something going to change. And when I saw the result yesterday, the verdict of the judge that this Derek is now being charged with these 3 degrees, or what the murdering degrees that he has done. So it was really a strong emotion, like the day that the Black community in America was given right to vote. That was the same spirit that was hovering yesterday. So it's giving a good hope for everyone, and not only just for the Black community, even for those who are not a Black community, in the minorities in America and everywhere, the indigenous, and in Australia, in Canada, in Europe, everywhere in Caribbean, and all over the world. As you have seen, the death of George Floyd brought out all the people who have been marginalized, those people who have been crying for justice to prevail, the justice for all. And this is what we have to see, justice for all, because nobody is above justice, nobody above the law in any country.
Absolutely correct. And yes, like you said, it is this kind of emotions that we Africans, and Africans can also, yes, at least it's a handshake that the government is doing something. It is reaching out. It is calling out by its name, and we want to see most of this happen. Now, if you look at this kind of satisfaction, even the pictures, as we're going to watch on this this video that we put out here, you can see some kind of like relief, even though we're not going to bring him back to life. Orders are saying he's not going to be here anymore, he's gone, but at least it is something just like a handshake. Do you feel that also?
Yeah, because the happiness of people, the emotional is not about bringing George Floyd back in life, because George Floyd become like a sacrifice. It become like the alarm to all people, because many people have been killed and nothing has been done. But the death of George Floyd set a platform for the justice to be for all. Justice has to prevail in all the states, whether in other countries, and this is what is going to change the whole world the same way. You have seen how after the verdict and the news was all over, people were waiting, people were celebrating, they are crying, emotional, and even I have seen some videos during the trials. Some people even went for they went for they went outside. People who are even campaigning outside, and people were using social media, talking a lot, so that for the justice to prevail. And there was a lot of prayers going on. There was overnight rally prayers with those of G.C. Jackson. You see in his age praying, even those of Oprah Winfrey. Yeah, everybody was so happy. If you read the comments, a lot of comments, that was showing that something has been giving birth to.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I would just take a minute. Let us watch this video. It's 24 minutes. It's very full of what we want you to analyze it and educate us on what we need to know about it. So let's take a break, not take a break. Let's just sit back, watch it. Make sure that you that are watching and commenting, put down some questions and some notes when we join us back here with Ambassador Tony Jaja, who is going to analyze it and pick out this point. And we know that this is the way forward. We have been educated about it. So let us take a look at this video. I hope YouTube is going to allow us to show it up. But in case not, then we'll just continue with the conversation. So watch.
Your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 91, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 92, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Are these your verdicts, so say you one, so say you all?
Yes.
Members of the jury, I find that the verdicts as read reflect the will of the jury and will be filed accordingly. I have to thank you on behalf of the people of the state of Minnesota for not only jury service, but heavy-duty jury service. What I'm going to ask you to do now is to follow the deputy back into your usual room, and I will join you in a few minutes to answer questions and to advise you further. So, all rise for the jury. All right, be seated. With the guilty verdicts returned, we're going to have Blakely, you may file a written argument as to Blakely factors within 1 week. The court will issue findings on the Blakely factors, the factual findings, 1 week after that. We'll order a PSI immediately returnable in 4 weeks. And we will also have a briefing on, after you get the PSI, 6 weeks from now, and then 8 weeks from now we will have sentencing. We'll get you the exact dates in a scheduling order. Is there a motion on behalf of the state?
Your Honor, the state would move to have the court revoke the defendant's bail and remand him into custody pending sentencing.
Bail is revoked, bond is discharged, and the defendant is remanded to the custody of the Hennepin County Sheriff. Anything further?
All right.
Thank you. We're adjourned.
Verdict count 3. We the jury in the above entitled matter as to count 3. Second-degree manslaughter, culpable negligence, creating an unreasonable risk. Find the defendant guilty.
got justice. We got justice. We won. Okay? We won. He may not be here, but we won. I'm going to pray for this man. I am. I'm going to pray for him, you know, because that's not how our family, that's not how we do. But I'm going to tell you something. I thought I was going to lose my life when I got that news. And like I said, to see him handcuffed and walk out of that courthouse like my brother was handcuffed, that told me he has no more power. He's not in control anymore, but my brother is in control. We can never get him back, 27 million, it don't matter. We can never get him back. There's nothing left here to remind us but a memory of his face and the love we have for him. And I'm so happy. I'm so happy right now. God, if you could just feel every beat of my heart, you know? I'm so happy. What's his name?
For your steadfastness. Today, we feel a sigh of relief. Still, it cannot take away the pain. A measure of justice isn't the same as equal justice. This verdict brings us a step closer, and the fact is, we still have work to do. We still must reform the system. Last summer, together with Senator Cory Booker and Representative Karen Bass, I introduced the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. This bill would hold law enforcement accountable and help build trust between law enforcement and our communities. This bill is part of George Floyd's legacy. The President and I will continue to urge the Senate to pass this legislation, not as a panacea for every problem, but as a start. This work is long overdue. America has a long history of systemic racism. Black Americans, and Black men in particular, have been treated throughout the course of our history as less than human. Black men are fathers and brothers and sons and uncles and grandfathers and friends and neighbors. Their lives must be valued in our education system, in our healthcare system, in our housing system, in our economic system, in our criminal justice system, in our nation. Full stop. Because of smartphones, so many Americans have now seen the racial injustice that Black Americans have known for generations. The racial injustice that we have fought for generations, that my parents protested in the 1960s, that millions of us, Americans of every race, protested last summer. Here's the truth about racial injustice. It is not just a Black America problem or a people of color problem. It is a problem for every American. It is keeping us from fulfilling the promise of liberty and justice for all. And it is holding our nation back from realizing our full potential. We are all a part of George Floyd's legacy, and our job now is to honor it and to honor him. Thank you. And now it is my great honor to introduce the President of the United States, Joe Biden.
Today, a jury in Minnesota found former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin guilty on all counts in the murder of George Floyd last May. It was a murder in the full light of day, and it ripped the blinders off for the whole world to see the systemic racism the Vice President just referred to. The systemic racism is a stain on our nation's soul. The knee on the neck of justice for Black Americans. Profound fear and trauma. The pain, the exhaustion that Black and brown Americans experience every single day. The murder of George Floyd launched a summer of protest we hadn't seen since the civil rights era in the 60s. Protests that unified people of every race and generation in peace and with purpose to say enough, enough, enough of the senseless killings. Today's verdict is a step forward. I just spoke with the governor of Minnesota, who thanked me for the close work with his team. I also spoke with George Floyd's family again. A remarkable family of extraordinary courage. Nothing can ever bring their brother, their father back. But this can be a giant step forward in the march toward justice in America. Let's also be clear that such a verdict is also much too rare. For so many people, it seems like it took a unique and extraordinary convergence of factors. A brave young woman with a smartphone camera, a crowd that was traumatized witnesses, a murder that lasts almost 10 minutes in broad daylight for ultimately the whole world to see. Officers standing up and testifying against a fellow officer instead of just closing ranks, which should be commended. A jury who heard the evidence, carried out their civic duty in the midst of an extraordinary moment, under extraordinary pressure. For so many, it feels like it took all of that for the judicial system to deliver a just basic accountability. We saw how traumatic and exhausting just watching the trial was for so many people. Think about it, those of you who are listening. Think about how traumatic it was for you. You weren't there. You didn't know any of the people. But it was difficult, especially for the witnesses who had to relive that day. It's a trauma. On top of the fear so many people of color live with every day when they go to sleep at night and pray for the safety of themselves and their loved ones. Again, as we saw in this trial from the fellow police officers who testified, most men and women who wear the badge serve their communities honorably. But those few who fail to meet that standard must be held accountable, and they were today. One was. No one should be above the law. And today's verdict sends that message. But it's not enough. We can't stop here. In order to deliver real change and reform, we can and we must do more to reduce the likelihood that tragedies like this will ever happen and occur again. To ensure that Black and brown people, or anyone, so they don't fear the interactions with law enforcement, that they don't have to wake up knowing that they can lose their very life in the course of just living their life. They don't have to worry about whether their sons or daughters will come home after a grocery store run, or just walking down the street, or driving their car, or playing in the park, or just sleeping at home. And this takes acknowledging and confronting head-on systemic racism and the racial disparities that exist in policing and in our criminal justice system more broadly. You know, state and local government and law enforcement needs to step up, but so does the federal government. That's why I've appointed the leadership of the Justice Department that I have, that is fully committed to restoring trust between law enforcement and the community they are sworn to serve and protect. I have complete confidence in the Attorney General, General Garland's leadership and commitment. I've also nominated 2 key Justice Department nominees, Vanita Gupta and Kristen Clark, who are eminently qualified, highly respected lawyers who have spent their entire careers fighting to advance racial equity and justice. Vanita and Kristen have the experience and the skill necessary to advance our administration's priorities to root out unconstitutional policing and reform our criminal justice system, and they deserve to be confirmed. We also need Congress to act. George Floyd was murdered almost a year ago. There's meaningful police reform legislation in his name. You just heard the Vice President speak of it. She helped write it. Legislation to tackle systemic misconduct in police departments, to restore trust between law enforcement and the people they're entrusted to serve and protect. But it shouldn't take a whole year to get this done. In my conversations with the Floyd family, I spoke to them again today, I assure them we're going to continue to fight for the passage of the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act so I can sign into law as quickly as possible. There's more to do. Finally, it's the work we do every day to change hearts and minds as well as laws and policies. That's the work we have to do. Only then will full justice and full equality be delivered to all Americans. And that's what I just discussed with the Floyd family. The guilty verdict does not bring back George. But through the family's pain, they're finding purpose. So George's legacy will not be just about his death, but about what we must do in his memory. I also spoke to Gianna, George's young daughter again. When I met her last year, I've said this before, at George's funeral, I told her how brave I thought she was. And I sort of knelt down to hold her hand. I said, Daddy's looking down on you, he's so proud. She said to me then, I'll never forget it, Daddy changed the world. Well, I told her this afternoon, Daddy did change the world. Let that be his legacy, a legacy of peace, not violence, of justice. Peaceful expression of that legacy are inevitable and appropriate, but violent protest is not. And there are those who will seek to exploit the raw emotions of the moment, agitators and extremists who have no interest in social justice, who seek to carry out violence, destroy property, fan the flames of hate and division, who will do everything in their power to stop this country's march toward racial justice. We can't let them succeed. This is a time for this country to come together, to unite as Americans. There can never be any safe harbor for hate in America. I've said it many times. The battle for soul of this nation has been a constant push and pull for more than 240 years. A tug of war between the American ideal that we're all created equal and the harsh reality that racism has long torn us apart. At our best, the American ideal wins out. So we can't leave this moment or look away thinking our work is done. We have to look at it, we have to look as we did for those 9 minutes and 29 seconds. We have to listen. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Those are George Floyd's last words. We can't let those words die with him. We have to keep hearing those words. We must not turn away. We can't turn away. We have a chance to begin to change the trajectory in this country. It's my hope and prayer that we live up to the legacy. May God bless you, but may God bless George Floyd and his family. Thank you for taking the time to be here. This can be a moment of significant change. Thank you.
right. Welcome back to studio with Ambassador Tony Jaja. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. But what happened? What happened to your video?
Yeah, I think. No, it's okay. It is okay. It's just that some of it was muted. But we wanted the main fact was to see some of the reactions and even our community out there, because every situation or anything that happens out there, particularly to our Black community, affects Africa as a whole. When you look at this does it just look like a decorative speech making, or you actually see some sincerity in what the leadership of this of the government is saying, like they're really going to act, or it's just because they did this other case? Do you see something that will be sustainable in this way?
Yeah, I think that if we go back 11 months ago during the death of George Floyd, and the only person who came to visit the place where George Floyd was murdered was Joe Biden himself. And he promised that, because it became part of his campaign. And the reason why he came out, even before making that statement with Vice President Kamala Harris, already they called the family while they are still in the hearing, why they got the result fresh. He called the family of George Floyd and is speaking to them after the verdict of the court. So the people were very excited that he was so concerned, and that is why after that he came and gave that statement. And that's what Kamala Harris said: justice to be served. That's it. There's no any other point. Justice to be served to everybody. That will end what is called discrimination and racism, because nobody is above law. Whether you are white, you are yellow, you're brown, law is law. And that is why people were so excited. And again, they were not happy because this white man has been jailed. They were happy because there is a sense of justice that they felt for a long time, that we have been waiting for. And this is the beginning of the first step. That is not the end of it, because there is other people who have been murdered the same way, and there was no justice for them. So that is going to review, and that is going to change even the Constitution of America and the way they do things. And I hope this thing should be adopted even in Australia, in Canada. And I have seen how the Indian, the Red Indian, the indigenous of America were dancing, were celebrating the result. So that is for all. It's not just talking. And I love the things that, like the way that the daughter of Martin Luther King said, is not only for the Black community in America, but this is for the whole Black community all over the world, wherever they are. So justice has to be for all. And I believe it's not about the decoration. It's not about the decoration, a statement from the politics. We have seen how the former president Trump was being rude in his speeches and his tweets and all, fueling the matters and what is not acting like a leader of everybody. Because you cannot be a leader of white people. You have to be a leader of every colors that you have, that making multicultural and multinational people that who have created America to be America today. And this is what we have to see, this thing, even wherever you are, in Germany, in Europe. And we have seen last time the people went out from German, people from Europe, from France and everything. So this is how justice has to be for all. And this is what we are fighting for. I remember what I said last time. This time there is no apology. It's not about apology and leave it like that. The real apology is when you implement the law, the rules of law, when you implement the law, when there is justice for all. We are all born of 9 months. Nobody came superpower. Nobody was born like Jesus and all these things. So everybody was born the same way. So we have a right as a human, and that is what we are fighting for. We're not just talking about what happened to the family of George Floyd. They get their son, the right of their son, and then people stood for them. But this is the time that to let the coming generation to carry on, like the generation who carry on after Martin Luther King, and he was fighting for the right of everybody. He was not fighting only for the right of the Black community. That he was fighting for the right of the nation, the country that can carry on all the Black community and the white community and the other Latinos, Spanish, and all. And this is what we have to see in our nation. Even there is other, even in Africa, we have seen even discrimination is still there. There is racism there. Some tribe they can dominate, and they say that we are the one should lead, we are the one should control, we are the one should. You are just a human, and they are human like you. So what kind of education do you have? They don't have. You put people in the system, and they follow the system. You put the laws, and the people follow the laws. That's it. This is how the country can be run. And that's why we are seeing every time there is rebellion in Africa, there's a rebellion everywhere. And this is the reason why, because there is no justice on the place. So there is no decoration. What President Joe Biden said yesterday, and what Kamala Harris said yesterday, there is no decoration on that thing. This is the real one. And have you seen the time that Joe Biden took over the office? He has signed a decree, 17 decrees. He canceled whatever Trump has done before, and he has given new orders. And this is how the leadership is. You stand for what you said. He said it, he's going to do it, and he has done it. And that is why he came up openly and giving the statement and is speaking to the nation. It was not just speaking to the family of George Floyd, he spoke to them on phone. But now for addressing the nation for the issues of justice. That is it.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Tony Jaja. I mean, you know, it's really currently as we're speaking, we're also getting information. I also saw somebody wrote it in the chat that, you know, a 15-year-old girl who just called for help from the police men in uniform actually came, but they shot her. And even a couple of, I think that was last week, a police officer mistaked a teaser for a gun and shot a young man. I mean, why is this actually just so happening to a particular race? That's the question that people keep saying. They would sign these laws. We can name a lot. Do you think that this is just the act that is passed that would follow all the other crimes that have been committed in this way?
Yeah, what has happened? You have seen, you are following what has happened in America and in other nations. When you go to all these prisons in America, you will see the young Black community are there, and there's some things that even can be sorted out, can be taken to court and then finished. But they jail them for things that, like what I talk about the George Sting the last time, when they went and sentenced him to death, putting him on the electricity chairs and putting this electricity power on him and killed a small boy, and he was innocent. So these things has to be tackled. Yes, there is a lot of things that's happened after George Floyd. There's many people have been shot down, they have been killed.
See there? Oh, okay. From every indication, I think he's been kicked out of the program. I don't know why. Probably power, technical issues out there. Yes, but there it is our duty. It is a point where we have to focus on everything that happens around us, pointing to us, so that, of course, we are aware that there's this systematic racism. But when topics like this come up, we really want to hold these leaderships accountable, whether they're just making empty speeches or they're going to act it, or they just want to show now I'm the better one or that. One thing that we Africans should be focused on is how do we build the Africa that we want? Because, but we also cannot exist without this global interference, without the US policies on the continent of Africa, without Africa signing treaties with the world and Europe and that. And this is kind of like disturbing for the common you and me that are just watching all these incidents going on, and like, where do we find a middle place? People just want to live like other humans. They want to carry on their daily activities, but then for whatever reason or the other, it is always a target that, you know, they lost their lives in some kind of a way. And sometimes, you know, it seems all right. And we sit and we just speak about it, and just like we are going to do that. And sometimes, you know, it is really sad, because, you know, no matter what, it doesn't matter how we actually express ourselves about it, whether we're dancing that, yes, at least we see something happen. It's been going on and on and on. When is it that this justice that we're really talking about practically would come up? Now, the next thing that we will be discussing about is the Situation Room in Chad with our brother Al Wahab. We also want to see, I mean, we have to really get into to understanding the history of this situation that led out to this conflict. Tomorrow, we want to have Professor James Moore on this issue. Why are Black African men targeted? I mean, the Vice President said it herself. Our men are not only our fathers, they are our friends, they are our brothers, they are our uncles, they are parents. They are actually the next generation. Without them, we wouldn't breed. Without them, we wouldn't be able to produce. Women and women don't produce, right? So is it also another strategy of just reducing this, like all the theories that we hear about population among the Black community? We actually want to, why is it that the Black man is the target? And I feel a lot of sympathy when I look at our kings and I look at our Black brothers and fathers. It's just like one could always be a target at any time. I have 2 sons, and each time you're like, when? It is sad. And in as much as we understand these issues, it's not just about, you know, somebody coming to address, or the purpose of, yes, they were in court and then he got whatever. It's not going to change the situation, right? But it is very important for us as an African community to come together to see how do we actually build our own selves together and just mind our businesses, go about supporting one another, supporting our own initiatives. And you see, even in this case of politics and this kind of systematic racism, it will still happen. How can you justify a 15-year-old girl that was looking for security, call for that, and is being shot? Sometimes it's hard to just believe, yeah, no matter how we put it, no matter how we say it is the way it is, but I mean, some things are really just hard to understand. So we need to wake up, we need to sit up. We really do also, you know, you can imagine, I sit sometimes and I imagine, what is the family of this 15-year-old girl just thinking? Just like, you know, we have our different challenges in life, which is even very difficult for us to overcome. And then out of a sudden, your own cost is just brought in by some other incident because of just who you are. How much more can we take, family? We need to be strong. But I want to really also congratulate our community out there, like all the reverends, and the Black community, the Oprah Winfrey's, their tweets, and I mean, just even expressing that shows me that unity that we're talking about. It doesn't matter whether some things, yes, we're not going to change it in the way we want them, but that power of us just coming together. When I saw these images, you know, of the brothers just hugging themselves, of L. Sharpton, Reverend L. Sharpton, just, you know, with Reverend J.C. Jackson, just coming together and just like at their ages, right? You look at our fathers, you look at people just asking, how could this always keep happening to our children? Even if we are great grandfathers, we fought these revelations for years, and now it is still going on in our very ears, in our very eyes. We hear them, we see them, we feel them, we cry all the time. When are we going to stop crying? When are we going to stop crying? We can't focus. Like we're talking about, we need to move Africa forward. We need to build ourselves. We can't even focus. Just to focus and say now, you know, we want to build our own thing. How can we? We are a communal people. We are related by our DNAs. Anything that affects a brother out there, affects me automatically. How can I concentrate? How can I focus? How can I just mind my business? How can my life just go on? Right? No matter what, this is this generic trauma that we say, we Black people. It doesn't matter. The fact that you just see something happen to your own race all the time, for decades, for centuries, at sometimes you're just part of it. Whether you agree or not, you are just part of it, right? And so I think no matter how we do it, we are part of it, and we should be part of the solution as well. We are strong. And no matter what, we still know if you give our history, like I keep saying, to every other race, they would never would be where we are today. So we have to keep on. The last energy that we have among us, we have to preserve it. It doesn't matter the trauma, it doesn't matter the hurt, it doesn't matter the pain, the tears. We still have to find that place where we can smile and say, yes, it is okay. We cry and we wipe our tears, but we move on. We don't have a choice. So I really want to thank you for being here. I don't know what really happened with Ambassador Tony. Is he there? No. All right. But we have our next guest that just joined us. And we'll be talking about the situation, Rome, Chad. Welcome. Yeah, bring him on. Right. Okay, I'm so happy Al Wahab is joining us, and we are going to continue the conversation today and on the next topic with our guest today, which is the situation Rome, Chad. Are you there?
I'm here.
Oh, I'm so happy. I'm so happy to have you join us on the stream. I mean, we're just coming from this tragic situation, even though we're entering another tragic situation, but at least we're happy that you'll be able to give us some facts and details on the conflict in Chad and even the passing away. What is the situation? What is it that we have to learn about that? Welcome again. It's been long, Al Wahab. How are you doing?
I'm okay.
What has been keeping you busy all this time? I know that you're in the Ramadan period right now, and I guess certainly you're just from breaking, isn't it?
Yes. Thank God. Inshallah.
Thank you very much. Yes. So what have you been busy doing? I mean,
well, pretty much we're working on a lot of stuff, as you are aware. Country Vanuatu and also the West Papua, which you are aware that the only Black African descent. And then you can talk about the island of the South Pacific, which till today still without independent. And they occupy the biggest island of the whole entire world, with the biggest population of almost 2 to 3 million people, more than any other island. And still, they are still the only island which is still under colonization. And some of us, we've taken the mantle on our shoulder to make sure we're pushing the agenda for West Papua to gain independence. Apart from that, there are other, you know, diplomatic consultancies which we are very busy engaged, working for some other countries, and then also private staff. But basically, we are servants of as and when the situation demands. That is how it is. So I'm around, just that I've been busy. So forget that. Forget about.
You keep
I may
breaking.
have to.
Yes.
No, because
Oh,
Addison,
can you hear me?
sorry.
Okay. Your screen is freezing. All right. Oh, all right. Can we just refresh? Maybe this is gonna allow him um, more time to join. He should be able to join us on the stream. You know, for those of you that are new on the Pan African Daily TV, Al Wahab had always been an expert when it has to do with the situation of the 14 islands in the diaspora, particularly the West Guinea, Papua, Vanuatu, all these islands where people of African descendants are still under slavery and haven't gained access or independence, as most of also the countries that are at war. He is really an expert on this topic of conflicts, particularly coming from this Islamic background as well. We would have to learn a lot on the conflict in Chad and why this mindset, and why this conflict, even in the northern part of Africa, has been going on for the longest time. I mean, we're talking about the jihad, we're talking about Boko Haram and stuff like that. These are all terminologies that, you know, in the Pan-African agenda, or for Africa that we have to understand them. How does it even function before we start looking for those solutions? I really don't know why he was kicked out, and it's really a pity. And yeah, oof, wow. Let me find out. Please join. I don't know what kind of technical difficulties he's having out there. Let's just hold on for a minute and get him online on call and find out what's going on with him there. Okay. This is weird. Yes. This is actually weird because it's the same system that Tony Jaja was kicked out just a couple of minutes, and I haven't been able to reach him. Now we're also having this issue going on now with Al Wahab. Don't know where this is all coming from. I don't just know. We'll just wait. Probably he's just trying to set up something, and he would join us here. And like we said, we are watching and the world as they pass on this verdict from the murder of our late brother George Floyd. But of course, we're also having this situation in Chad where we just lost the president. Who was out there as a frontline leader and was shot yesterday, and his son has been installed. And today, early in the mornings, we see already him in action as he's been welcoming some members of, you know, his cabinet and paving the way forward. We actually want to get a little bit of history about Chad and the conflicts that have been hovering around that region. And Al Wahab is really the right person to educate us on this. And I hope he is back. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. Yeah. I'm so sorry. What technical challenges were you having out there, Al?
You know, when you connect on the main, I was trying to use the laptop, which will not have any interruptions. When it's connected on my phone, timelessly, there will be so much calls interruptions. So I needed to
That's
bridge
fine.
over. But I think it
Okay.
should be okay now. Okay.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, we're certain, we're comfortable. I just, we're already being worried. We never know. I'm just happy it was because of that. All right. Yeah. So you were talking to us about these
Yes.
diplomatic relations and the Vanuatu. Where are we at now? I heard that you were made the official ambassador to negotiate all this on their behalf. I mean, before we go into the situation with Chad, where are we now?
Actually, the ambassador is actually in Abuja. I'm the advisor to the special envoy for the entire Africa, and then also the same thing for Vanuatu, both West Papua and Vanuatu. I'm the envoy's special advisor, and then we operate more or less, you can call it the ambassadorial role or the envoy role for the entire continent, West Africa, and then also Africa. So where we are now is that as you are aware, you're talking about international relations, diplomacy, and then also you can talk about when it comes to country, and then Vanuatu, for instance, belongs to the APC bloc, the African, Pacific, and Caribbean, which actually is the country that is pushing the agenda of the independence of free West Papua or granting West Papua self-determination. And countries like United Kingdom, the UK, have actually stepped very strongly forward, and then Holland and the European Union as well. So as we speak, one can say that it has been tabled all over. The agenda had also been pushed as far as to the UN tables. So we are hoping to see that if not the COVID, whereas leaders are not able to congregate freely as it used to be, the Security Council and others, the meetings have been overstretched due to the COVID, making it impossible for people to meet. If not, I think some decisions, when you are hanging on decisions on communication through Zoom and all those kind of other technical details, it makes it very difficult for definite decisions to be taken. But then on the whole, I'm very grateful to some of the countries that have really, the European countries that are pushing the agenda. So one is hoping that when the world returns to normalcy, it shouldn't be any time longer than 2 years. One will see the most country, the black descent that are so under, we call it a bondage of a very hostile atmosphere or hostile situation in the hands of Indonesian central government, Papua, West Papua. They will be freed and they will have their self-determination, so that their interim prime minister already, who is sitting in the United Kingdom, can have the access to actually work for his people, and then also for them to proceed to liberation, leading to government, formation of government, and then also making the people also lead their life like, excuse me to say, a normal human being. Because in the 21st century, 2021 today, there are a group of people or individuals who haven't seen passport before. And there are a group of people, individuals, who have not seen outside world before. Group of individuals who hasn't got access to telephone and access to communications. They are cut off the world. It's one of the most painful moments that our brothers and sisters in the West Papua are being faced. But then, better late than never. I think it took a long walk to freedom when South Africa were able to have the apartheid system abolished. The same way like Namibia and other countries that suffered, South Sudan, etc. So we believe that with the diplomatic push and then also the resilient efforts being put out there by interested parties and countries, we are hoping that West Papua would have a liberation and they'll have independence gained. It's quite a bit astonishing to believe that if you look at the South Pacific region, they are the biggest, of course, islands of all the islands. They are the most dense populated islands of all the islands. If you look at Nauru Island, that has only 12,000 population, is still having an independence as a country. Tahiti, Kiribati, Tonga Island, and even Vanuatu, the diplomatic hub of the South Pacific, they are just 300,000. So imagine a country with 2.5 million or population with 2.5 million. It's bigger than almost every island population in the Caribbean, most of them, let me put it that way. And yet, they don't have. Whereas we have countries, Solomon Island, that are not up to even 100,000 or so, they have independence. So one is asking, why should it be that? And why West Papua? And while the entire Africa is more or less quiet. But 2 years ago, when the Ngungi Yamapoja declaration, they just made a brief discussions about it, it was tabled. But then, you know, Africans, you know, the African Union and then the ACP itself. When there's an issue and there's an issue brought on board, you realize that the funny aspect, we don't look at the people suffering on the other side who are part of us, but they are looking at only their political solutions and how and what they benefit from Indonesian central government. So you realize that the approach of some of the countries on the continent and the 82-member country bloc, they seem to be drawing back. They don't make direct speech. They don't make direct accusation. They don't say directly things. They only go out there and give diplomatic lines of 2 sentences, 3 sentences, and all the time they will not conclude, and you cannot tell out what actually is the reason. And that is where Indonesia is playing the politics, because they can infiltrate into the camp of the Africa that's supposed to push them back. There is nowhere in Europe where they have this kind of atrocity. There's nowhere in the Caribbean where we have it, and there's nowhere in Asia, except the South Pacific that has registered and still registering a member of the South Pacific nation that is still under bondage, without independence, without self-determination, and the people are the biggest, occupying the bigger island on earth. So that is where we are. So I think some of you should add more of your voices for us to help our brothers and sisters to liberate. We are talking about 400 years slave trade. So if 21st century, still there are some people under slavery. And as I've given you some notes some time before, you have people in prisons already disabled, not having guns, not having anything weapon, and yet the people guiding them are not human beings, snakes. How do you keep people in a prison and only pythons are their bodyguards? When does it become that a human being is being bodyguarded or is being security guided by a snake? So you can think of it. Only 7 people from that land, West Papua, have managed to escape the island. Only 7. Benwenda, who is the prime minister, sitting granted asylum, and then Api, you've interviewed him also before on this your channel, and others. Not more than 7 people have left the island of West Papua. It is a little bit quite surprising, but then we will do our best.
Thank you very much, Al. Thank you for your engagement on this, and even throwing the light out there. Sometimes we just focus on our daily updates and programs and things that are surrounding us, and we really forget that a part of us is still out there in what we really call slavery. I mean, it's not just slavery like we use this word now. They've been trafficked, human trafficked, and are put in bondage. It's still a part of us. It's a part of our history. It's a part of our race, and we must talk about that. Good. So thank you for that information. Today we would want to, yes, we would want to focus on the situation in Chad. We don't know even Chad. A lot of our viewers, yes, we read about that, but getting an expert like you to tell us the conflict in these regions out there, and particularly the situation in Chad. Over to you. Thank you.
Okay. Let me say once again, hello to our cherished listeners. It's been a long time that I've featured on the program, and pretty much now, when the dust is settled, I'll be coming frequently as I promised before. Oh, let me just say that, yes, thanks a lot. Chad, as you and I know, it's a Central African Republic country, and one would say that Chad is one of the biggest countries in the world. Out of the 186 countries around the world, Chad is the 20th biggest country in the world. 20th biggest country in the world. Bordering with how many countries? 6 countries. They border with Libya in the northwest. They border with Sudan, northeast. In the eastern part with Niger. in the southwest with Cameroon and Nigeria, and then they border also with Central African Republic, also in the south. So pretty much, this is a country that is surrounded by countries that are all seeing what is called conflict. Chad, unfortunately, with all the vast and the big mineral resources, until today, is more or less seen as one still of the poorest countries, if I'm permitted to say so, on the continent of Africa. However, the mineral resources that country has, the petroleum, the uranium, the salt, the kaolin, are you getting me? The livestock, the gold, the gravel, and the sand. They have about 8 main commercial volume of what? Of mineral resources. And yet, it is still poor. Why? It is a country that has seen rebellion, terrorism, and it's surrounded by countries with conflict. Niger, not in isolation. Nigeria, the northern part of Nigeria, which is the southwest of Chad, not in isolation with the Boko Haram, etc. In Sudan, not in isolation. So if you look at Libya, it's also another contributing factor where Chad and Libya rebels, the jihadism, and a lot of what? Rebellion, terrorism, Al-Qaeda, all operations happens to be on the soil of Chad. Indeed, the situation of Chad, as you could tell, they went through a hard way like any other African country, and parts of the multitudes of the French countries that were given, let me call it, a bundle or a baggage of independence around the same 1960. Chad was one of them that tried to push for agenda of independence in 1958, but they were granted in 60 when the French colonial masters were tired and put more than 15, 20 African French countries and give all of them independence. So Francois Tombouctou, who also got the independence for Chad, look at the time that he got the independence in 1960. The history of Chad has said that only after 5 years, from 1960 to 65, there was already a coup, and there was already a rebellion, there was already, and I call it a military takeover. So if you look at from independence, right after the independence, they had what is called opposition. From 1965, how long did it take? And then also Hussein Habre also jumped into power with Step Hunt, as we all know, how he ruled his people from 1982 up to 1990. The 8-year rule was very hard. You see, so it's a country noted of hostilities in terms of, let me call it, military takeover. But then all their leaders positioned themselves as I will call it, hardliners. But from 1990, when the president Idris Debby stepped into power, overthrow a strongman Habre, you realize that at that time, Habre was in the good books of United States during the time of Reagan. Same Habre was in the good books of France. One would ask, how did he turn around? Or how was Idris Debby, who was then schooling in Libya, World Revolution Center, which was known as the Harvard of the Tyrants, where he went to study and graduated in, let me call it, military activities, making him also a rebel leader in 1990. And then he marched on and then overthrew the Iron Hand Habre. When he overthrew Habre, from 1990, where he gained his popularity, and he told the people of Chad that Habre was too stubborn and too stiff and too strong, killing Chadians. Over 40,000 people were registered being killed. He wants to liberate Chad. So everybody welcomed the decision. Everybody welcomed Habre, how do we call it, Idris Debby. So 1990, when he won power, through the military coup. 96, after 6 years, he brought Chad back onto the democratic table, making him the first Chadian president elected, democratically elected president in 1996. But don't forget that he himself was a rebel leader. He had his people, that he had the rebellion activities against Habre. So when he did that with them, and then in 1996, after the elections, they had a mandate of only how many? 5 years. So the first election that took place in 1996, the first election, the next election was 2001. 2001, when he had opened up and they were having elections, he was accused of having rigged the elections. He was accused of fraud. So that is why his hostilities and his problems began. And around that time, in 2005, that was his second mandate, the terms, he managed to convince the parliamentarians, which of course, a person with a military background, a coup d'etat, removed the jacket, put on a suit, sacco, put on a jalabia, and became a civilian government, still had the ideas of also not giving up power. But don't forget that, because the people he had the coup d'etat with to push up Habre, he sent Habre, all of them ran back to the north. They ran back to the Zagawa, where they did the coup to overthrow Habre. So when they went into the desert, and then he was remaining in the south, in N'Djamena, that is what happened. Idris Debby, had problems to begin with his own colleagues, that is the former allies, who went to form a jihadist group, and they were trying to do what? Fight with him. So 2005, when they accused him that he changed the 5-year mandate, that is the 5-year term, and then make it unlimited. He removed the code of having 5 years term and make it blanket. That's like most of the countries, and I beg to say, like your country, Cameroon, like other French countries, where the president can have multiple and multiple and multiple. So Idris Debby, even though he came out as a savior in the eyes of the Chadians, from 96 giving the country a first election, 2001 accused of fraudulent elections, 2005, then there was an issue of pushing the agenda to eliminate the term limit, and he managed to succeed that. That began his troubles. So you remember in 2008, the people that he had a revolution, those rebels from Zagawa, they moved down to N'Djamena and fought in N'Djamena, killed a lot of people, and managed to get to the Palace des Presidents. They got to the gate of the presidency, and France noticing that no, our man will be gone, so we have to check in. And then French flew down, and they came to restore and managed to push the rebels away. That was the first time he succeeded, even his first coup attempt by his own colleagues, no any other thing, his jihadist group. In 2008, in N'Djamena, the Battle of N'Djamena, it took place. 2008, 2013, Idris Debby very cleverly positioned himself with the West, and you and I know that when France is a world superpower, when France carry you on their shoulder and carry it in their arms, take you to the UN Security Council or their colleagues, and tell them that this is our best president and this is our best ally in the region, fighting against jihadism, Boko Haram, Ansawat, Ansadin, Protestant, bandit group, all manner of groups that you find around the Central African Republic region. So when he was being introduced by France, America came to like him. So you look at the scenario, Americans love person who was Habre, was overthrown. France liked Habre, he was overthrown. Then the same France and United States now came to back up Debby. So Idris Debby became a flamboyant young man, a very strong ally to the West. What was he doing in 2013 when there was a launch of Mali? Because Mali, as you know, over 14 active rebel groups are in that region. But it is noted and known that Chadians are best fighters because of the altitudes and because of their region, and then the desert and all manner of weather that they can brace the storm and fight. So they themselves, together with the France, it was the only single African country, not Senegal, not La Côte d'Ivoire. If France wants to go to anywhere in Africa to fight, they relied on the fighters of only Chad. So Chad army became a popular army, friends of the West, to Europe, some countries, and then also to the Americans. So when there was a fight, and then the France were fighting in Timbuktu area, it was Chad that went to Mali to fight. So indeed, jihadist group in the region, they have a beef with Idris Debby. When there's any issue in Niger, Idris Debby will move troops in. When there's a troop, even a problem with Boko Haram, that is the way he managed to position himself for the West to like him. Look at his invasion on the northern tip of your country, Cameroon, and then also the Boko Haram in Nigeria. So he was able to leave Chad and then come to Nigeria even to fight with Boko Haram and go back. So Idris Debby, actually, he sees himself as a strong man in the region in terms of the army and then in terms of also the support from the West. But it beats my knowledge and my intelligence, and it beats my understanding that a president now in his 60s, late 60s, and then you've gone through another successful election. You haven't even delivered your speech. Acceptance speech had not been delivered. Transition government had not been delivered. How would you risk? How would you risk to go to the battle lines? How would you risk to move with the troops? Because already there was a serious engagement on the front lines, because during the elections, the rebels promised that they push to N'Djamena and it will be tit for tat. So the president, you are aware, but after the election is over, you still have the France that backs you. France can cordon off how big is N'Djamena. The government, the road even to the palace is not up to 2. Look at where the palace of N'Djamena, the presidential palace, when the French cut it off, unless there's air power, and these rebels haven't got the air power, so you could stay quietly in your presidential palace. What on earth would a sitting president, who is an incumbent president, successfully going through elections, and the threat, and you have the strongest military that are already dealing with the issue, and you yourself wanted to be a commander on the ground and move to the battle lines? Even though I don't support a president who stays in power, more or less, even though he's doing things to make the West like him, that he's fighting jihadism, he's fighting rebellion, he's fighting Boko Haram and all those kind of things. But I'm saying that we are preaching democracy, and that is what Africa wants. The way is democracy. So if you've been in power for 30 years, this year would have marked his 31st. What does it tell you? It tells you that he was going to begin another 5-year mandate that would have pushed him to 36 years close, and he would have been also, if not the second or the third, the longest, if you take the monarchies and the kings, he would have been the third or the fourth longest serving president on Africa. So on that matter alone, for me, anything called death or assassination, I'm against. However, one was also saying that the way maybe he came, or the way that he has served the country, and the way democracy is not fairly practiced in Chad, but rather fist hand, iron hand, strongness, machoism, shoulder, hard shoulder, is what, in my view, went into his mind, made him feel flamboyant, made him feel that, okay, I'm a strong man in the region, as it was noted. So let me just go. And I don't see, it's not normal that a civilian government, not a military government, a civilian president that will lead and wear military uniform and go with the combatants, his own military, onto the battlefield. So one would say that Idris Debby caused his own death. But then another history of it is that that region is too porous. That region is too saturated with rebellion activities. And a lot of them, Joseph Kone and others hiding in the region of Central African Republic, they will feed on the absence of Idris Debby. Even though he has his bad side for staying in power without giving power or making democracy not work. However, it is also regrettable because his presence was somehow making it a little bit difficult for rebel groups or groups like that to converge on the west on the Central African country. So he somehow destabilized the groupings. But at the end of the day, in his absence, let's see how Mehmet, his son, will be able to push. Then again, it comes to mind, the story is not different from Kabila. The story is not different from Eyadema, and the story is not different from the other French countries. Why am I saying that? Soon as he was being assassinated or being killed, what do we hear? The council, the military council, the son was in the army. The military council now, they move him. So one would say that where was the parliament? What was the parliament of Chad doing? How did they recognize the presence of the Chad parliament for them to make, if even referendum, to bring a deputy or to bring a prime minister or to bring a president? Why the son? So again, it is another monarchy approach, because till today, you and I are aware that Joseph Kabila, in another fine style, he was assassinated by somebody close to him, close to their own son. And then even to today, nobody knows the jail sentence, that gentleman. But some of us, we were told, and we have been told that he was a friend of Kabila Jr. He was let go. Nobody heard of his being assassinated or killed. How today Idris Debby's son assumes the role at a young age of 37. How old was Ayadema's son, and how old was Joseph Kabila? So pretty much it's a French style of how you want to do things, and particularly the most troubled area of the entire Africa, with military operations, military uniforms on our desert, on our sea, banks of the sea, in the forest. West Africa, luckily, only Nigeria, Boko Haram, which is a special case. But when they come to West Africa and the south of Africa now having some little problems with Malawi and other countries, if you go to the east, you hardly find, even now, east have their problems, but military occupation and active rebellion, it is really much not the case. But the Central African republics, including that of your beautiful Cameroon, my lovely country, they have all these kind of problems, and it all emanates from the fact that it's long-term rule of the presidents that causes some of this. So it's a bit disturbing, but let's see how it will unfold. I would also not be surprised anyway. France has jumped into the defense of the young man, and the military is saying that, well, even though Idris Debby is dead, however, we managed to consolidate the gains of the government not being overthrown. And that indeed is what actually has a little bit to back on a bit to give to the people of Chad, those who love him. But you would realize that those that he went to have the elections with, those ones, maybe they will be jubilating, much as some would also be tearing apart. But let's see how they will let democracy at this point. One would have expected that an interim government would have been formed. And when interim government is formed, it will pave way for the continuity of democratic dispensation. In my view, if that was done, it will reduce the certain amount of military occupation by the rebels, because their military approach or their rebellion approach, terrorism approach, is the fact that they see that Idris Debby never wanted to go out of power, but they see that they had a coup because all of them were rebels. They see themselves as the fact. They were part of the FACT group, which is the name of their group, the Front for Change and Concord. That is the rebels that killed him. He was part of the same FACT. So if the son is now coming, the beef was continue to be there. But I thought the Chad constitution would allow and take advantage of the situation now and say that let's go to the drawing board. Let's go back to the parliament. Let's go back to the constitution. Who was his deputy president or deputy prime minister, or who was the next person, speaker of parliament? So let make him still the what? The president or the interim president while we see to a normal or different transition. After all, Idris Debby had a party. He had a running mate. So if Idris Debby is there today, how does the son jump the running mate? His vice president, and then the son becomes the leader. So it means that they have abolished and neutralized all the gains, call it democratic gains. They've abolished everything back to the military, just purposely to fight with the rebels. So the trouble of Central Africa, Doctor, I think it's a little bit of a difficult situation where we are now. That is the situation that Chad had consolidated gains. One would say that even though with an iron hand, there was a bit of calmness, democratically, let's call it, if even it was not a liberal democracy. But how do you lose a leader, and that leader today is being replaced by his son back to the military? So is Chad still having a military government, or they having a civilian government? And what happens to Chad parliament? This is a question France, Macron, and then the French allies should answer. You and I have no power to go into that arena, but it's a little bit of a dicey situation that the people will unleash against the pressure on the son, who is part of them. So if your son, who was a military leader, if your son, who is a 4-star general, comes to take a country where you have a democratic president who is dead, and I ask myself, how does a democratic president remove your suit and then put on military uniform, put a turban, and hold a gun and go with the battle lines? You are not going to sit with rebels who are not prepared to sit with you. They are going into offensive, and they are going into defensive. They are going into front lines to fight. Where does it happen that the president has to be involved and be part of military operations? It's left for Central African Republic, and then for the listeners also, maybe quote unquote, to decide.
Thank you very much. That was that insight help us to ask another question or to come on to this point. I mean, Al,
Yes.
it's funny if they had put another military personnel,
Yes.
maybe from the opposition, we could think that it was because of a profit, but it is the son, like you're saying, that is taking over from the father. Now, there are also speculations or critics or voices on the social media are saying that it is another way just to take a 37 years, put in that place and roll that country again under that same kind of dictatorial regime for another 50, 60 years.
You compare the Joseph Kabila and how it took Kabila, the young man, after the death of the father, how it took Congolese to be able to take him out of power through democratic dispensation. And even you remember that he rendered the country not having an elections being contested and no validity, and he hung the country for about 5 years more, even before he left. You notice not only with him, we are seeing that in Eyadema, but then in Idris Debby's issue, for me, I don't see it as anything different. I ask a simple question like you and I, that he was not a military president. He was just a civilian government, and for that matter, a civilian president. So if a civilian president is assassinated or killed or anyhow, democratic dispensation, rightful democracy, tells you that we revert to the constitutional approach. The Chadian constitution not different from yours, not different from mine. Ours different because we have a vice president, but the Chad, their own, like the French countries, Speaker of Parliament becomes the next, the Assembly General, he becomes the next in line per the French system. So one would have expected that As long as that man is so not being killed alongside with the president, it means that you had an interim president already in the making. So bring him on board. The party that won power still remains. The Speaker of Assembly General is still also part of Idris Debby. So who are the council of the military? Because the military did not go as going into invade or going into occupation. They were going into normal military operations to fight with the jihadists in the northeast. So if they have gone into operation to fight with the jihadism or the jihadists in northwest, northeast, whichever, and the president decided to be flamboyant and then wear his military attire because he misses it so much and follow them. He went. He couldn't come back. What happens? Fallback position, Speaker of Parliament, Andre. Circumstance. But in this situation, the military, before they brought the dead body of Idris Debby, had already sat together and decided the son. So in my view, one would ask a question that how many of the generals were killed? The son was parts. How many of them died? Till now, we know of only Idris Debby who was killed. How many of the army were killed? The son is fourth side general. In my view, a French military boy who has seen a taste of presidency looming before him, like Kabila Jr., who came into power at the age of 28, like Yadema Jr., who came to power around 30, 31. So they have a zeal and a feel and a thirst for presidency. Could there be a conspiracy theory? Could there be something that the military and who the national security coordinator or his military advisor who really advised the president, who is just coming out of 3-4 days of election, to ask him to be part? And if you are taking the president to the front line, where was he positioned? In which car was he sitting in? And they claimed they were ambushed. How couldn't they have known, with the backup by the French, that they couldn't have known that the rebels have ambushed him? And they were able to assassinate the president, and all what they say that he died out of multiple wounds. Was he left on the desert and they ran away? Or what exactly took place? How did they get him back on the helicopter to fly into N'Djamena? How did it happen? Only his death was announced overnight. It is not a coup d'etat. Nobody has overthrown Idris Debby's government. He has not been overthrown. So if he has not been overthrown, it means that Chad is still having a civilian government. So if there's a civilian government or civilian government, how do you again now bring a military that the Supreme Military Council of Chad have decided that in the meantime, the son 37-year-old boy become the leader and the head of state? Meaning a coup d'etat has taken place. So for me, per their narrations and per the appointment, it means that the military themselves did a coup, which in my view, the president's son could have been involved. Let's take him to the desert, finish up with him, military come over and take over Chad. It's very simple as that.
Wow. Of course, these questions are coming up also. That's the same thing that everyone is asking. What actually happened? We just saw once no other person died. There was even no confrontation, nothing. And from every resource or from every report that we've been going through, try to analyze it, there was really nothing. And now if you look at even the way that, you know, they came out to announce it and something like that, it was just like, let us take a minute and watch this short video that we put on after, you know, the announcement of him and the others, and see, you know, right? Oh, I'm sorry. I think I think we have to. I still have to send the video for it. Yeah. So it is funny, isn't it? Wow.
Yes. Yes. It is more than funny, Doctor. The point is that it doesn't make any explicable sense It doesn't make any viable sense, and it gives no credence to the topics and the history, and call it the story that they are telling. Because you cannot, if you didn't have any premeditated or preconceived mentality and agenda, you couldn't have taken a certain president and wear him military uniform. Only he being the person, no general had been announced or pronounced dead, and he is being killed. You bring his body to N'Djamena Hospital with multiple wounds, and the son assumes the role of the presidency. And I'm saying, and I'll say again, that what happened to Kabila, Joseph Kabila, after he fought Mobutu Sese Seko from his base in Tanzania, and then when he came to power, Kabila in no time was openly close range, assassinated in the cold blood by a friend of the family, a bodyguard of Kabila, who happens to be the son's friend. And again, how when the son became the president till today, unless maybe, doctor, you might know where the assassin or the assassinator or whoever killed Kabila, what sentence was given to him, and where is that gentleman throughout the time that the Kabila Jr. became a president of Congo. You remember when he had 4 deputy presidents, the only country in the world that registered one time 4 deputy presidents, trying to please the Congolese. But in the end, what did he do? You understand what I mean? So it is a bit too much of a capital story, very inexplicable. But I'm looking at, we are acting as non-French. We are acting as an outsider, but I'm an African. How is France reacting to this? Democratic challenges. How is France approaching? And one would have expected that France would have instrumentally ordered and asked them to return to democratic rule and continue, because you have an election declared. We are waiting for the swearing-in ceremony. The president is dead. The democracy is not dead. He did not go with the child democracy, neither did he go with the elections. He left the elections behind. The son supposed to be a military. If I'm the one and they've killed my father, I'd rather combine my efforts being a 4-star general, and even questionable that 37-year-old boy is a 4-star general. Yes, indeed, is the father who was over-promoting him. So he's a 4-star general. That is the end of the Chad army, and he's the top man of the Chad army. So if they have 3 or 4-star generals, they could have air marshal, they could have maybe vice marshal, whatever, field marshal, whatever marshals that they have. But 4-star general is the backstop of the Chadian army. So if he has reached at 37 years the last level of Chad army, and today the father dies and the military says he is the president of the interim, it is still the question remain: is Chad, France in support with this arrangement, or it was designed by the French, or it was designed by the military? And what should the parliamentarians do now? Do we have parliament or we don't? Or they are returning back to the situation of when Rwanda, when Paul Kagame came from the bush as a military leader and a rebel leader also from Uganda in a Uganda military uniform to cool off the storm between the Tutsi and Hutus during the time in the early 90s of after the death of Habriana, which led into the Tutsi Hutus genocide. When there was an institution of what? An interim government was formed, and then Pastor, who became the interim president, and then the rebel leader who came to stop the fight, called Paul Kagame, became the vice president. So he was wearing military uniform, and then he still goes to the parliament as a vice president of Uganda until the pastor you could not handle anymore. When Kabila, Paul Kagame was actually disrespecting him in parliament. So let it even be that way, in my view. Let it even be that way, that if the Chadians wanted to demonstrate to the world that their democracy had come to stay, because you have the oldest president on earth who is sitting in jail in Senegal. So that country has a history. So why didn't they back to the parliament? And if the military wanted the son to be part of the government, let it be. There's a precedent. The president was Kabila, the president was Paul Kagame. Let the son go and be even the vice president with the military uniform, because you French is possible. Le pays anglophone, c'est pas possible. Les pays anglophones, c'est pas possible comme quelque chose comme ça. An English country will not allow that a civilian president and then the vice president is a military with uniform and a gun in the parliament. But French, everything, tout est possible. So you do everything. Now, we expected that the son would have gone back to the parliament if the military so-called wanted him to be there to represent their interest, not to abolish since 1996, democratic so-called, quote unquote, democratic dispensation from 1996 to today, and then you bring a military back, inexplicable or not being definite, and then directly saying that we now have a military government or we have a civilian government. That is the issue. That it exposes the genuinity and then the fact of the story. Per the actions of the military, per the assumptions of the son in the government as the leader and the head of state. Whereas there's no coup d'etat, you cannot have a head of state, whereas there's no coup d'etat. So if there was a coup d'etat or mass referendum or mass protest, and then somebody assumed the role of being a head of state, bingo. But this is not the case. Even the election itself, which was fraudulently in the view of the opposition, was not even it has not been contested yet. The Chadians are calm about it. So either the president dies and the military now takes over, where is the coup d'etat in Chad?
Okay.
So France must answer this question.
Yes, France. That is the point. That is what I wanted to say. Because if you look, you already said that the English-speaking zone, would not tolerate something like that. Look at the example in Tanzania, right?
Yes.
Where the president also was sick, but suddenly, passed away. But then we saw the vice president because of their constitution. And now you look at the French-speaking African countries, it is just another kind of a system. Now we still see the invincible hand of what everyone is saying France must have been in. Now, but the question is that we want to find out, what legacy did actually Idris Debby left for Chad? We heard about the legacy of Magufuli in 5 years. What did Idris Debby leave for Chad?
Well, Idris Debby, one of his legacy was the fact that he gave Chad the first democratic elections in 1996 after he himself came out from a rebel leader becoming a head of state and then subsequently a president. One of the legacies, if we are counting legacies, you can't move negative and positive legacies. One of the negative legacies is also his 30 years rule, like any other African leader that we are fighting, including Paul Biya and others, that we don't need this kind of lesson. One of his legacies that the West reads about him or tells about him, that he's the French and he's the ally of the West for fighting jihadism, for fighting terrorism, allies of the West. But in my view, I'm asking, is it really economic achievement? No. If you ask me, what Idris Debby did was salt, because they have one of the biggest stock of salt in this world. What did they do with it? Zero. Egypt supplies salt at their second or their third biggest income earner. What did he do with the sand? Chad has one of the best sand. Gravels. You see granite gravels being sold all over the world. Chinese are even prepared, so-called, if we are not selling ourselves, our country, our resources. China is the biggest buyer of gravel. What did Idris Debby do with the gravels? What did he do with uranium? The limestone is one of the most expensive mineral resources, commercial volumes in Chad. What did he do with that? The work of Chadians is zero. Employment with Chadians is zero. Economic activity with Chadians, zero. And yet, they have one of the biggest livestock of the entire African continent. They could only supply to some few countries, including Cameroon and other countries. What was the benefit? And if you have all these 9 commercially volume mineral resources, and your people are still, and the country is still rated as one of the poorest in Africa, where is the legacy? Where's the legacy of Idris Debby when N'Djamena is still too dusty? Where's the legacy of Idris Debby, where only the legacy is for a foreign government to praise him of being a strong man because they have what they get out of him? What happened to the petroleum? The Chadian petroleum, it is not different from the Libyan petroleum. The quality of petroleum, the crude, the quality of it is Chad and Libya and Nigeria. They have the best quality. What happened to the volumes? And since Chad had been mining crude oil, what happened to it? What is the size of their population? Why must a Chadian go to bed and they don't have hospitals? So if you ask me of legacies, I'll measure economic legacies to a political legacy. So if you tell me that I gave the country independent, I will say that I gave the country first democratically elected presidency or government. I would also say that somebody also toiled. Francois fought for the independence of the country. Then you would also find out that Habri also fought also to overthrow, how do we call it, Tomboya Baya. So it is a country with history, with iron hands. But if you're talking about justifiably, I'm yet to see. N'Djamena Airport had not been different. I don't know, maybe that's how you went there in recent time, doctor, but in N'Djamena, I haven't seen differences in N'Djamena or changes in N'Djamena way back in 1988 till today. So if you are in the bush, on the forest, chasing rebels and fighting rebels, ask yourself rather the causes of the rebellion on your land. Why would you leave your country and rather decide to follow the West or follow whatever allies to go and push and fight for more enemies on your land? But again, my dear, I've expected and sat down quietly to expect that the African Union once again, or the Central African Bloc of the organization, would make a comment and pass a comment just only to tell them to return to normalcy and to return to democracy. Jamais.
Exactly. That was
African
my next question. Go ahead.
They have not spoken. When are they waiting to speak? They are waiting when they sit on table and have coffee, drink tea, and then sleep. Nobody. Because the country will say that, okay, even in the hands of a bad leader, let me put it that way, but still in the hands of a democratic leader, call it that way. Terms of government is another thing, but democracy is another institution. So if they have democracy and it has been overthrown because the president is dead, if the president is dead, it doesn't overthrow the democracy. It doesn't overthrow the governance. So this one makes it look as if that the opposition that were also fighting with him, the opposition now, you see the behavior of the son. The behavior of the son is that tomorrow, the next day, when he mounts on the father's table, the first thing that he will do, back to the French system normal, he will arrest the opposition leader, incarcerate them. He is going to arrest the opposition leaders and incarcerate them, abolish all political party activities, and that brings the country back. And the country is back for France cover. So the son now becomes another strong man in the region, a pampered baby of a former assassinated president. Chad has no history and they don't have any future, let me put it that way, where the country will be put or where the country is going. So it is a bit all the time Africa comes too late Are we saying that the emergency commission of the African Union, they are sleeping? Ethiopia office is opened. Arusha office is opened. South Africa office is opened. There are others that are opened. Can they have an emergency sitting and instruct and communicate and give a communique that the Chadians have no right and it is not correct and proper practices to put the son as the head of state, whilst the country had a president who died? He did not die as a revolution leader. He died as a sitting president. So he must be replaced by a constitutionally vice president or a speaker of parliament. If a speaker of parliament had not been selected, because it happened in the interim, in a time when the Chadian parliament had been dissolved, the whole thing looks like a funny tale and a funny story. Because, doctor, look at it. Election over. No parliament is sitting. Parliament is dissolved. No speaker of parliament. No majority leader yet. No minority leader yet. Government is not formed. Look in between the transition. Idris Debby was killed in between transition, whereas there's no government. So the military has access. So it means that either the son or the military or they ganged to go and kill the man, and then return the country to military. So that is where we are. Back to the French. Chad is back to the French. So Africa must speak. Africa must speak.
I would still come back to the issue you talked about the African Union. Like, even a statement, an official statement about his passing away, I mean, they didn't even do it with the others. But it would really be necessary, and I'm still trying to reach out to them to see if we can have a correspondent out there that would just even educate us on the structure and the functioning of the African Union. And I hope we would really have that access to get them, because it's so strange that even a head of state passes away in that kind of a condition. I mean, irrespective of even the changes, no official statement. But if it was something that happened in the West, and you will see some kind of huge letters coming out there. I mean, it's just not fair. We have to get access into that house and find out what is it that they are doing there that we need to know that we are not knowing. Now, Al, you started this series, and I hope you have time now, because every Wednesday we want to do a topic on all these conflict zones. Remember, you promised us last time. Tell me how you're available, because even the situation in Southern Cameroon, you owe us a lecture on it, isn't it?
Yeah. We'll talk about Boya, we'll talk about Nyenge, we'll talk about Kumba, we'll talk about Mliki, we'll talk about Mamenda, we'll speak about everything. Though we're going to do that. Let me take you back a little bit, brief on the African Union. You were discussing about the structure. Let's put even the structure. Let us, the whole world and cherished listeners, not understand the structure of the African Union. If not anything at all, we know they have Secretary General. We know they have the President of the African Union. Is that correct? So if we have a President of the African Union and a Secretary General of the African Union, it means that they have an emergency council or emergency commissioners council or emergency commissioners. So if there is a team, the President of the African Union is there, and he has heard of the death of Idris Debby. It is commonly practical. He knows where to call. He knows the leaders to call, and they know how to push. That is why African Union has a 7 days secretariat that is opened working in Ethiopia. So what are we talking about here? The Secretary General has their computers and the laptops. Let nobody come and tell us that because of COVID they can't speak. But because of COVID, they are in their presidency all the time, drinking tea and drinking coffee. So one would say that even look at the messages. Nobody has seen a Twitter message that it's only the very good friends of Idris Debby, they have shared their sorrow over his death. But the union itself, or the bloc itself, the continental organization itself, till today, have not delivered one single message, one single communique, telling the people of Chad or asking the people of Chad to do X, Y, Z. You know why? Because they see Chad as a landlocked island. Listen to me. They see Chad as a landlocked country without sea, but then they see Chad as an island. Because what? Chad has an owner, and the owner is Macron, or the owner is France. So they are sitting down and listening and waiting what the French says. But interestingly, who dare any French president in your community, in your region, to speak and tell the Chadians to return to democracy? You are fired. Paul Biya wouldn't do that. Central African Republic president wouldn't do that. My very good friend Odimba, he can't do that. No French. Togo will not do. Beninois will not do. Burundi will not do. Congolese, they will not do it. Brazzaville will not do it. No French country in that region would open their mouth and advise or share their thoughts, telling the Chadians to resume and still to continue with the democracy or let democracy still prevail. They will not. So if you are the next border, Cameroon, you are French. Central Africa, you are French. Gabon, you are French. Brazzaville, you are French. Congo, you are French. And all the French countries in the region have not spoken. Do you expect Gambia to tell Chadians? Do you expect Tanzania? Do you expect Malawi? Do you expect Kenya? Do you expect English Ghana, Nigeria, Sierra Leone to speak? No. And when it comes to the matters of the Arabs or the Northern African belt, don't forget that the North African belt, for them, they have the Arab League in their mind. So more or less, they are part of the continental organization, but somehow they feel they are not part. So for them, they will not speak about something that bothers on Chad. But the people who are supposed to speak, the Niger, they're supposed to speak. They're supposed to speak. Nigeria is supposed to speak. The countries that bother with them, but I've said and I've made a case that the English, if they will not talk, they deserve not to speak. What about the French counterparts and the French colleague? Because all of them, they do the same thing. Tell me about the elections in Burundi. What happened? It happened like that. Tell me if Paul Kagame, African celebrated democratic or best president, as some of us or some of you or some Africans says, he hasn't made any comment because there's no democracy at his background. Even though he's a good president, one would say, economically maybe, but he hasn't got democratic records for him to bluff off, to tell Chad that return the country to a civilian rule. He wouldn't do it because he knows where he came from and how he has sustained power till today. What happened? You know, interestingly, look at the scenario. When anytime Brazzaville is having elections, they are going for 6 years. The same time, between the election period of Brazzaville and Chad, always within 3, 4, 5 days. You calculate and see. And the same people are continuing. So French wants to have easy problem. They don't need to wait and come back, wait and come back. Whilst Idris Debby is having election, Brazzaville, Congo Brazzaville is also having elections. And all of them, they clear them, and all of them, they go. Bozeze not different. It's so bizarre. It's so bizarre. But that is where we are. There is no union that has a command. I don't see any town, any country, any province, any regional in Europe under the eyes or in the eyes of the European Union where Romania, Bulgaria, and other countries, Croatia and all those, Czech Republic, etc., will be able to do things on their own, and Germany, France, and other Western allies or the Middle Europeans will not speak. They will strongly criticize and want them not to do that. But in Africa, c'est la même chose, c'est la même danser.
Wow. So, I mean, this kind of education really opens up a lot that we Africans are still thinking, oh, like as if we have some powers, but you see the limitations of the, I mean, we're talking about the leadership. I mean, the common man on the street, the 80% who are the poor like us, of course, we have our powers. We can determine, you know, our self-determination for ourselves. But we're talking about the systems and this kind of leadership and government. Where do you see it? Do you see even the son that would do exactly like the father did? Or is going to be something else? What is it that we should expect from your experience?
If I were to be the son, at this particular moment, the thinking of that or the expectation of anybody, normally per our culture and traditions, the son supposedly should be the most sad person or the saddened person. But then another school also will suggest that the son will be one of the most happiest. If not anything at all, the father has been a president or head of state, call him to combined for 31 years. Adios, au revoir, arrivederci, goodbye. Now he assumes a role. And you and I know a French boy living in Paris, a general, he has never seen poverty. Because if he's 37 years, the father ruled the country for 31 years. So he was 6 years when the father came to power. So he has not seen poverty, and he himself continues the rich life. What makes him a sad person? So therefore, if the boy wants to satisfy the world and tell the world that he had no hand, and tell the boy that he's sad, the world that he's sad, and tell Chadians, if I were to be in his shoes, with the vibrancy, with his age, and the African youth are saying that let democracy prevail, will that boy be the first to challenge the world and say that let my father's era be over? I'm bringing Chad to what Africa is looking for. Please, if even the elections was not properly done, let's have a rerun or re-elections, or let the constitution follow its normal consensus mandate. Can the boy do that? If the boy doesn't do that, some of us will accuse that the military and the son connived, condoned, and then agreed to assassinate the man so that they return the country to military so that they themselves can also enrich themselves. But if it's against what I'm saying, then we expect the boy. It's incumbent on his neck and shoulder to make sure that the country returns to normalcy and return the country to a democracy. If he doesn't, and he starts arresting and start wearing uniform and call himself the head of state without any mandated date, without any term, without any tenure, then in that case, you know that business as usual. Chad, Niger, Mali, these are the three French countries who are very well noted, destined themselves as expertise in coup d'etats. But interestingly, they are not, even if you're talking about the rebels, who formed and created rebellion even more than Sékou Touré of Guinea. All the rebel groups that were formed in Mali and within that region of West Africa was through Sékou Touré. And yet, the most oldest and the longest rebellion group of the entire world was the Casamance rebels, and still the Casamance rebels of Senegal, over 650 years. And yet, Senegal is the only country that has not tasted coup d'etat as a French country. So it cannot be that you have rebels on your land and that governments will be changed every 5 years. There's a coup d'etat like they do in Niger, a coup d'etat like they do in Chad, and they do in other French countries. It's not possible. And that is the way it's supposed to be. So I don't believe the whole story of Idris Debby's death, anyway, He had an opposition, but he was not killed by the political opponents. He was killed by his own fellow rebel group that he left them in 1990 on the Zagawa Bells. And they formed the Frontier for Change and Concord. He was part of that group. And that group has finally, according to the military, according to the son, they are the group that killed the father. But all of them returned home safely and alive, except the president who died.
Yeah. Of course, this is it, right? This is really it. Thank you so much. I mean, it's so inspiring, but I would like to just take a break and watch this video for those of you who did not see, or just to have an idea what actually just transpired this couple of days. I know it's been existing on the Pan-African Facebook page all this week. We've been reporting on it, posting pictures and comments, and even the reaction on the Chadians on the election of the new, the son in office. I mean, all the latest information in terms of news, you can find it on our Facebook page on daily updates. Patrick and the team out there are putting out actually concrete information. And what we're doing on the Pan-African Daily TV here is then the conversations and the news is going out there every day. So let us take a look at this video and we get back to Al. So Al, you can also drink some water. Thank you.
Why not? Okay, give me 1 minute.
I'm so sorry. It's as if, no. I think something went wrong with the link. We would get the public link because, hold on. It's a technical error from our desk out there. So the video was not yet public. Just hold on a second. And I mean, I was just like shocked. What is going on? Right. Give us a second. We're going to make it public and then we can watch to have an idea of the situation that just unfolded there in chat. So you can put the information, the theory that Al has been lecturing us this evening, and then you combine it now with the practical views, and then you get a general overview. So, all right. So play it on again. It's okay now.
Le maréchal du Tchad, Idris Debby Itno,
comme il le fait chaque fois que les institutions républicaines sont gravement menacées, a pris la tête des opérations lors du combat héroïque mené contre les hordes terroristes venues de la Libye. Il a été blessé au cours des accrochages et a rendu l'âme une fois rapatrié à N'Djamena. Nous présentons nos sincères condoléances au peuple tchadien, à sa famille biologique et politique, ainsi qu'à tous ceux qui, en Afrique et dans le monde, ont une admiration et un attachement pour ce grand homme d'État.
Chad's President Idris Debby has died whilst visiting soldiers on the front line of a battle against rebels, an army spokesman said on Tuesday. General Amb.Dr announced the death in a broadcast on state television, surrounded by a group of military officers he referred to as the National Council of Transition.
Le Maréchal du Tchad.
Chad's Marshal, the President of the Republic, Head of State, Supreme Leader of the Armies, Idris Debby Itno, just gave his last breath while defending the integrity of the territory on the battlefield.
He said Deby's son, General Mahamat Kaka, had been declared interim head of state. The news comes just a day after Debby was declared winner of Chad's presidential election. That victory had heralded a sixth term for one of Africa's longest-serving leaders. But the day of the election saw an attack on a border post by rebels, who are based in Libya across Chad's northern frontier. They then advanced south across the desert. On Monday, Deby's campaign team said he was travelling to join troops fighting against the, quote, terrorists. Debby came to power following a rebellion in 1990 and was a staunch ally of Western powers in the fight against militants in the Sahel region.
Chadian President Idris Debby Itno, who has been in power for 30 years, died on Tuesday from injuries sustained while commanding his army and fighting against rebels in the north over the weekend, a spokesman announced on state television. The President of the Republic, Head of State, Supreme Head of the Army, Idris Debby Itno, has just breathed his last while defending the territorial integrity on the battlefield. It is with deep bitterness that we announce to the Chadian people the death this Tuesday, April 20, 2021 of the Marshal of Chad, announced the army spokesman, General Amb.Dr, in a statement read on TV Chad. Mr. Debby, 68, a career military officer who seized power in 1990 in a coup, was promoted to the rank of Field Marshal last August. He was re-elected for a 6-year term with 79.32% of the votes cast, according to provisional results announced on Monday evening by the National Electoral Body. Ministers and senior officers said on Monday that the head of state had visited the front line between his army and a column of rebels who had launched an offensive from rear bases in Libya on Election Day, April 11th. The rebels, whom the army claimed to have defeated in the fighting, had said in a statement that Mr. Debby had been wounded, but the information had not been confirmed by official sources.
Chad's President Idris Debby has died whilst visiting soldiers on the front line of a battle against rebels, an army spokesman said on Tuesday. General Amb.Dr announced the death in a broadcast on state television, surrounded by a group of military officers he referred to as the National Council of Transition. News comes just a day after Debby was declared winner of Chad's presidential election. That victory had heralded a sixth term for one of Africa's longest-serving leaders. But the day of the election saw an attack on a border post by rebels, who are based in Libya across Chad's northern frontier. They then advanced south across the desert. On Monday, Deby's campaign team said he was travelling to join troops fighting against the, quote, terrorists.
Yeah, so that was a short overview about the situation, and you could see them always, hand clapping presidents, always being near when it has to do with elections, or they have to sign treaties, and everybody will be there, just like always a showcase of something. Al, you look at the whole scenario. How do you feel?
You know, the African governments or the African leaders or the African presidents, they're all that we have. So showcasing or showmanship, that is, they are very political. When you talk about practicality or political mafiousans or political, game, I think they are very good politicians than the West. Difference being that the West, yes, of course, the West are pragmatic politicians who are prepared to deal with policy base and policies, what really democracy is. And I've said, we try to have what is called political tolerance, but democracy, you don't have it. A democratic nation will not tell me that if I want a loan from the bank, I pay 41 to 47% of the amount to begin with. Democratic nations make sure that in terms of crisis, citizenry are not costed the more. But in our case, on our part of the continent, in terms of crisis, that is when the ordinary citizen is costed or made to pay more because there's a problem. Democratic nations, they make sure, even to the extent of sharing money for their nationals so that they will be free. I.e., example of COVID. How many countries called the democratic nations of the world have stepped forward to reduce rent, to reduce insurance, to reduce social services, utilities, etc., for the citizens to have a liberal adjustment in their lifestyle. So when it's about us, and practically you live in the West, when was there a time, or had there been a time that you saw the president of the United States of America is going to stand by a bridge that he's either cutting the sword for the beginning or cutting the sword of handing over? It is not his business, because the secretary for the public utilities or the secretary for construction is there. So in our case, it is everything that is about presidency, it's about the president, it's about president. And don't forget, he has wife, he has children, he has family, he has clan, he has region, and he has a tribal setting. So if the president is moving to any place, for sure, he's able to move the government machinery. He's able to mobilize the school through the Ministry of Education to line up students, to clap for him, to wave the flag. So the president enjoys all rights of incumbency, but incumbency and the practicality of enjoying the incumbency does not resonate with what is expected of the president. So pretty much we exert energy, synergies, and then also our power to play politics. Because if you should take a sitting president to go and launch the usage of a public toilet, it is too overpopulism. It's a populist approach. And these are some of the things that you saw. Now, serially, what you are seeing is that they are showcasing how the Chadians, when Idris Debby went here, how old women were jumping. without telling them or telling us the story of the other side that are so going to bed hungry? How would they receive Idris Debby? So that side of the story is not told. That side of the camera is flipped. So the camera only see the popular side of him. But the popular side, the poverty side is the greatest. The camera doesn't see the poverty side. So me, all this showcase, all these political gimmicks, all this political show, all these political Maradona games, I set it aside. I ask myself, how do I feel as a citizen of a country, whether or not I'm happy? How do they feel when we have the sons and daughters of the African continent crossing over? There's a video, there's a story where a Ghanaian or somebody from Africa has thrown her son or her daughter over 18 inches wall just to cross, drop the child down because she's also crossing to Europe, having been able to sail through the Mediterranean. These are the stories that we should be dealing with, not the president who has the leverage, not the president who has the leverage to be called by a community to come and dance and then cut a sword, and the next visit will be the same sword cutting, and then the work is not done. I remember a certain country which is close to Central African Republic, maybe your country or somewhere around, when the president in the days of 1990 and the 80s, 91, when the president is called for any deba, the president they give him was a woman. They give him a nice young girl with good breast as a gift for him to take home. You know the country I'm talking about. You see, these are the things which we believe that it belongs to the past. It's supposed to be abolished, but rather let us not look at the political side of life. Let's look at the economical side, the standard and the cost of living and employment. Don't give me a free electricity, but give me a job to be able to pay for electricity. Don't give me water for free, but give me a job to go and have money and then pay for my own water. Because by paying for the water, I'm paying for tax, and the tax could be used for the country's reconstruction or rebuilding the nation. Not to give me something free, no. So if you don't want to give the people free, give them job to do. Befitting job that will earn salary, that will pay them. They will not turn out to be burdened. Don't give me free hospital if you don't have, but give me money to be able to pay for my hospital bills. Is that what are we doing? No. So all over, it is just only a kind of a football game. The politics of is too much. And whatever they are showing, whatever child is showing, whatever, of course, France 24, they are showing only the beautiful things of only Idris Debby. When he was with Macron, when he was with this, when he was with what, when he was with that. Of course, pictures are not what is feeding the Chadians. Correct. The camera is not what is feeding the Chadians. It is not, of course, when you go to the White House and have a carpet rolled, it does not make you necessarily a good president. You could be a terrorist. They don't care. Long as you're having a state visit, they give you the red carpet. That is the protocol demand of the diplomacy. And this picture should not convince you and I and convince anybody that he did a good job. That's why he was well received across the globe or across the West. It is not. Because he was being manipulated and he allowed himself to be manipulated. While he was also trying to manipulate the West, that I'm doing and I'm fighting your fight for you. But nobody told you, nobody tells him to go to Mali and fight. You don't have even a border with them. Nobody tells you to go and fight for Chad and for Niger. Regardless of having a border with them, leave that resources and then fight with the petroleum that you have. Let the military with their energies do something with the sand. Let the military go and have the production of salt. Let the military produce limestone. Let the military produce all the natural resources that God gave to Chad. In that case, I can call you a good president. But don't tell me that you go for loan and you use the loan to build a road, and then you go to the village, we throw a big deba, you come over, whereas that loan is accruing interest. And it is me, the poor person, the poor woman like you and the others, we are still going to pay. Our children, great-grandchildren are going to pay. Where's my benefits? These are not things that a president should jubilate about. But let this one be a learning point of the African leaders who are prepared not to go and trying to collect money, trying to satisfy the West, claiming they are fighting against insurgents. The insurgents are not in Europe. Insurgents are not in Europe. If you look at the Russian rebel, the Chechen rebel, led by Bonkanu, they are not fighting in Germany. They are not fighting even in Moscow. They are not fighting in Ukraine. They are not fighting in Albania. Neither are they fighting in Kosovo, Croatia, or Serbia, Montenegro. So nobody gives them any attention. Let them do their own rebellion there. But the countries around are interested, making sure their people are living in peace. 1990, Doctor, you have been in Europe. The biggest trouble of Yugoslavia when the republic was breaking away, that as large as Yugoslavia was, and all the regions were breaking away, forming their own country. Slovenia, okay, Slovenia, and then also Serbia, Montenegro, Albania, Kosovo, Albania, Tirana, all of them were breaking away within a short period of turnaround, whereas all of them were refugees in Europe at the time up to 1993-94. Look at Croatia today, Zagreb. Look at Sarajevo today, and the advancement, the improvement, economic benefits that have gone there. Go to Romania in 1988 under Ceausescu. Romania didn't have a WC. Romanians didn't have WC. It's a story different from where you are in Germany. 1990, people were living in Leipzig. They didn't know toilet. People were living in Dresden. They haven't seen an elevator before. People were living in other parts of Eastern Germany, as in Huchenstadt and those places. Look at how they were living at that time. And compared to Africa, where people were having gold-plated toilet seats already, as it in 1990, where are we and how do we see Eastern Germany today? Those are the things that I would say my legacy president, a president who left legacy, or leader who left legacy. Angela Merkel, you know where she came from. She knows. She lives in the East. She came as a single person with one party in Germany. And today, the longest serving prime minister or Bundeskanzler in Germany, look at what she's done. And look at the country. Development at the other side. So if you come 31 years, 36 years, and the only thing that you call a legacy is the photographs you had with Macron, photographs you had with a world leader. So when you see African leaders, they go to the West. There is an international confab. There's an international summit. See how they run. When it's a photo taking time, you see them rushing to go and join Japanese president, to go and stand with the Korean president, etc. Meanwhile, you got independence and started life before Korea. You got independence before Malaysia saw what is called independence. You got independent before Indonesia. You got independent before Sri Lanka. You got independent before most of the countries even in the West. So how and why are we still speaking and talking the same thing, and they don't have the ears and they are not prepared to listen? And we still keep on talking about colonization. Where I'm talking about Afroism, not colonizing. Afroism. We are very Afroitic minded, that what we left, but even our cultures and tradition, we've broken it down. We have broken down our own cultures and tradition that was on our own properties. We've broken it down and adopted the Western cultures and this. And we turn around to say that A white man doesn't like us. They are deceiving us. They are manipulating us. Yet we are the same students sitting with them in Harvard. We are sitting with them with George Mason. We are sitting with them at all the universities that we see out there. Some of our leaders, did they not attend the same school? So what is the problem? Don't we have brain on our own? Don't we have it? We have it. So for me, I will never and still will not believe. Yes, they have no place to go and buy, or they would have no place to get cocoa. Because if you don't know the use of your cocoa, they know the use of your cocoa. Now, as we speak, China has started cultivation of cocoa, plantation of cocoa. And when they threw out the biggest farming company of the world, the biggest agric farming company of the world, Shandong Wujian, Africans were sitting, they didn't know the intentions of the Chinese, bringing all their farms, bringing the best and the biggest farming company in China, state-owned, to Malawi, to Uganda, to Mozambique, to Nigeria, other parts, cultivating cotton, cocoa, etc. At the same time, they were taking the seeds, checking our fertile of the land, the fertility of the land, doing research. Now, in the next 5-10 years, China will become the biggest cocoa production company, a country in the world. Where would Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire cocoa be? That legacy is what I'm looking at. That legacy is what I'm looking at. So Idris Debby's death, well, it will not mark the end of all deaths in such a style. Of course, it won't be the first. It's not the first. It won't be the last. But I'm saying that, are they prepared, or some of our leaders prepared, to learn lessons out of what's happened to their colleague? I find it so sad that somebody's father, somebody's husband, strong enough, you left home in the morning, they bring your body shattered with bullet. Who wants to die in such a manner? Who wants to die in such a manner? It's sad. But can't we call it avoidable? Could it not have been avoidable death? If your security did, it's avoidable death. Idris Debby's death, it's avoidable death. Yeah, from Islamic point of view, we said that anyhow you die is God's wish and God's death. But then at the same time, it is also very good if he was on his bed. I find it difficult how the rebels would have gone to his bedroom to kill him and bullet him like they did. So this is where we are. He was trying to play politics, a politics of machoism, politics of strength, display of strength. I'm sorry, I think my battery, yes, maybe lucky.
It's okay.
Oh,
yeah, we're also rounding up. Yeah, we're also rounding up because of your time. So just round up. I know your battery will not be long again, and then we make it another appointment next week with you on another topic.
No problem. I'm always available. Thank you. And if they have Q&As, question and answers, I would not hesitate to take them. And then if there is anybody has anything to ask, why not? But if not, Africa is mourning a very strong son of Idris, the name of Idris Debby. Let us all mourn, but let us all pray and remember the Chadians, my fellow Muslims, my brothers and sisters. It's sad that he died during Ramadan time. May Allah grant him al-Jannah, that is heavens. May Allah forgive him his sins. He's a human being. He lived on earth. He did good things. May God remember the good things that he did to him, himself, God, and then to mankind, and grant him heavens. We are not perfect. He came to live on earth as a human being. He might have done a lot of wrong things. Yes, people have killed him today. Becoming a rebel leader, there is a high possibility Idris Debby has also killed before. There's a high possibility under his command as a rebel leader, he also instructed people to kill somebody, and they've killed. May God forgive all of them their sins. Death is the reward of every mankind. but that is not what we settle on. May Almighty God grant the people of Chad peace, and then also give them a peace. Again, the family, most especially his wife, his children, and the family and the loved ones. God grant them peace, and then God also grant them a very warming heart to be able to deal with such a situation. But to all of us on Africa, a president is dead. It is not the good news, but God is the ever knowing. Let us all embrace some of these things and do reformation and reform ourselves as a continent, and ask that is not how the Western Europeans, or this is how in most of the jurisdictions, that is not how their presidents dies. Yet, and I haven't seen in a long while where a revolution tears apart, where military tears apart a leader or a president. They run to the end of their government, of their mandate, or they resign and go home peacefully with their books and their pen, with their family, if even disgraced. They gloss over it and go home. In our case, either we end up being amputated, or we end up being dead, or we end up in such a fashion. We don't need this. But in all this, we believe and we pray that Almighty God, Allah, will guide us through and sail us through and liberate our continent. Second, dear Français, libérer mon pays. So we are praying that our continent, our countries will be liberated, including Cameroon, including our country, Cameroon.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. That was a good conclusion. And like you said, we've been seeing all the posts. If you live by the gun, you die by the gun. So you live by the lies, you die by the lies. So I want to thank you so much for your time, Al. And I'll be reaching out to you because these political topics were just sleeping on the ground because you had other stuff to take care. But now we are happy to have you back, and I will connect with you to see when you're coming back on another topic, political issues and leadership and conflicts in particular countries where we need to have access to, particularly also the Pacific region, where you are now actually the ambassador and the voice there on the continent. We want to see more of our people gain this freedom in West Papua, Vanuatu, and all these islands that we don't even have an idea about. So thank you for your work and your engagement. Our regards out there to you. And during this period, we pray that may all of us have the peace and grace and stay in harmony with one another. So thank you so much for being here. You want to say one last word before you go? Yeah.
Cheers. My peace to all of you. And then may God use the holy month to bless Africa and bless the entire continent and people of the world. Masalam. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you. Thank you so much, brother. Good night. Right.
Good night.
Yeah. So thank you, dear Pan-African. I think we had enough really concerning this issue of Chad. For those of us that are hearing about it for the first time or did not actually know what kind of a leadership was that, what happened, what kind of legacy. From his point of view, we heard it, and we're looking forward for better days for the people of Chad with this new leadership. And we'll keep ourselves informing ourselves and educating ourselves what is the way forward. We know nothing is going to change overnight, but at least now an African understands what is happening in Chad. Who was this kind of a leader? We know that an African understands now who was Magufuli and what kind of reforms and what kind of leadership. Now we are also seeing that Malawi is coming up to begin to address some of those things that, are not actually happening. And now we can begin to see some really clear example of leadership and the type of governance on the East African or English-speaking colonized African countries and the French-speaking colonized African countries. You can see really the difference and the footprints that are still very active there. Now, question remains, it is our continent, it is our future. How are we going to create solutions that would move us forward? Tomorrow, like I announced, we're going to host Professor James Small, and the topic is, why do they actually target? Why do the systems target our Black men? I want to invite particularly the queens to join us on this show, because I think we need to really wake up and sit up and understand a lot Imagine that the systems are already targeting our kings, our men, our brothers, our fathers, our husbands, right? And then we again would be again in that issue. So there's some things that we really can understand and have, you know, some concerns and think and be conscious when we make some decisions to you know, that should push the system away from attacking our own very selves. And particularly if we know that they are targeting our kings, what is the role of the queens to give the backup and to protect them? It is very, very important for us to know this. Sometimes we just talk about everything, but we don't really put the kind of a focus. It's just like our kings, they know that they're there to protect us. The systems know that without them, we are vulnerable, right? We become free and available to whatever they want us to be. Our children go fatherless. They don't have the kind of upbringing and parenting and care that we're supposed to have. So should we allow all this? How can we do to support the process to empower our men, empower our kings, empower them, particularly when we know that they are the target of whatever thing is happening in terms of racism and all? Yeah. Those are external things, but internal things, we're going to deal with it, you know, within us. But we want to have Professor James Small educate us on this. On Friday, we're going to have Rotendo. Rotendo has been long without us here, and I already had concerns that people actually were like already asking, what is going on with Rotendo? But Rotendo is going to be with us on Friday. It is very important for us to know the situation on the U.S. sanctions on Zimbabwe. And now, what is the Biden and the Kamala Harris government doing? You know, as opposed to that sanctions is still going to be the same. What has changed? We need to know. You know, we need to be informed. And so Rotendo is going to be here with us on Friday. On Saturday, you already heard it. I already told you to save the date. We're having two young, powerful Africans. We have Nana Kwame, aka Freedom House, and Osman Touré. And the idea is, how can young Africans create wealth, right? So we're going to be talking about his projects as well, as a showcase of what young Africans can do, and actually, you know, creating jobs in terms of technology, industrialization. How can they actually become the youngest millionaires to create and rescue their continent from, you know, what we've been talking about? So we're going to have a hot and heated and well-equipped week up to Saturday, and then next week we'll update you. Now, if you haven't subscribed, please just do that. You remember, we are running our campaign. We're running the 1 million subscribers campaign. And believe me, the idea of this campaign is very simple. We have African brothers out and sisters out there, particularly in the diaspora, that are saying, we want to give Pan-African Daily TV, a satellite that we've all been yearning for. This is the biggest news. But you know what? We need to reach out to this target, because they're the people that we want to empower to change the continent. So if we give them 1 million subscribers on our YouTube, we're going to get our channel. So be a part of this campaign. It is very, very necessary. It is not a Susan Tata campaign. It is not a personal campaign. It's a campaign because it is very necessary. Yes, who are we going to be educating? Look at a seminar like this that we just hosted, 2 experts. Now, how many people we reach out to? And we want to bring that change. We want to build the Africa. So we're calling on you to be a volunteer, to be a part. And let us see how we can actually achieve this in the shortest time possible. And we're going to get our satellite donated, given to us by our own people. And so we can continue to do our work. Is it not what we've been yearning for? So I want to have you be a part of this campaign. Whatever way you think that you can help us to reach the young people. That's the target, the young people on the continent in the diaspora, because it's not just clicking and subscribing and having YouTubers 1 million. No, if we reach out to this target, then we can know that all our seminars, our education, our empowerment programs is actually working for the benefit to liberate and give freedom to an African. Do you get me right? So please click, like, share, comment. And I'm going to be dropping that campaign video right after the show. Please make sure you share it. Be a part of the volunteer. just give yourself that opportunity, to save your continent, to save your race, right? And to create another milestone. Number two, the campaign gives us a possibility to set goals and achieve them. We want to see in a period of this time, what goal did we set? How did we meet up? It is the same thing. We can never build the Africa we want if we don't set goals and we achieve those goals. So I kindly look forward to our support to make us meet this 1 million subscribers in the shortest time possible, right? And get our TV channel. So we're going to avoid all these technical setbacks and stuff like that. So we're good to go. Thumb ups to you. I know we can make it because Africa has everything it needs for us to make it work. So I thank you, and we'll see ourselves here tomorrow again. Join our campaign. Drop us a WhatsApp and say, I just want to be a part of the campaign, and let's roll and make it work for the Africa that we want. Good evening to all of you. Bye-bye. We see us tomorrow. Bye.
You are watching the Pan-African Daily TV with Dr. Susan Tata. The Africa we want. Unity, consciousness, our culture, our spirituality, our history. One Africa for Africans worldwide. Motherland's calling its diaspora home. Join my voice. Join my team. Join my campaign. Campaign 21 hashtag 1 million subscribers on the Pan-African Daily TV YouTube. Be a volunteer. Apply now. Be the new Africa.